2 months, the European Committee on Social Rights, which is the supervisory body of experts under the European Social Charter of 1961, which is part of the Council of Europe, have just reviewed UK compliance with the obligations that it's undertaken under the European Social Charter, one of which is Article 6, subparagraph 4, which protects the right to strike. And they have held that the ban on prison officers in England and Wales taking strike action is in breach of the European Social Charter. So that is a very significant finding indeed. And if the government are genuine in wanting to uphold the rule of law, then they should find ways to reverse the ban on POA right to strike.
There's been a European ruling. The Committee for Social Rights have decreed that the British government are not adhering to the standards they should be adhering to, which means that the right to strike for prison officers has been ruled as against our human rights. That holds a lot of weight, especially when we're taking the government to court, the European Court of Human Rights, to try and reinstate our right to take industrial action up to and including strike action. So this is a very welcome ruling, and let's see where it takes us.
We've been campaigning on this a long time. In actual fact, since 1994, on and off. And we think this is a game changer. It's a major breakthrough where the courts, and let's face it, this is the Council of Europe. So because it is a decision of the Council of Europe, it is in principle something that should be given great weight. So we've instructed our lawyers today to update the European Court of Human Rights of this decision in Europe, and show them the evidence of that report at the end of January 2026. Now, in many respects, I wish I'd had a copy of that report when I met the Deputy Prime Minister along with the General Secretary of the TUC to rehearse all our arguments as to why we believed that the British government should repeal Section 127, or if they're not going to repeal it, to engage with us on a without prejudice basis on a variety of other issues. Now, David Lammy at that meeting turned us down and said that he's not going to go against, or he couldn't go against, what Shabana Mahmood, the previous Secretary of State, had said, which I find it must be embarrassing for a Labour government, actually, as we've articulated many times to both Shabana Mahmood and to David Lammy, that they are in effect endorsing conservative legislation and going into a European court to defend a previous conservative government. So I find that situation for them a wee bit untenable. And they'll get criticism from not just the POA, but I think they'll get criticism from the whole trade union movement, actually, in respect to that, because this is an unjust law. It shouldn't be in place in a modern society. And we actually gave the Labour government a way out of this by inviting them, because the European Court of Human Rights actually invited both parties to see if there was any potential for a resolution without this issue going to court. Well, we will never turn down any negotiations or discussions with any government, and we expect the government to enter meaningful engagement with us.
Well, it has far-reaching repercussions, really, for a variety of workforces, ourselves included, along with the police and the armed forces who don't have the right to take industrial action as well. It breaches our human rights. It does hold weight in a court. It puts the government under pressure. And we would like to sit down with this government and resolve this issue before it goes to court. because we think we should have the right to take industrial action up to including strike action. So our membership should welcome this ruling. We've written to the government asking them to meet with us and sort this mess out. We hope that they do take up our offer, because if we can avoid court action and come to some sort of resolution with this government, then we hope we can.
This report now what identifies what we've been saying all along. Now, in one breath, the government, Keir Starmer and David Lammy and others in the cabinet, cannot portray themselves as the party of the rule of law if they ignore what's been said in Europe about the unjustness of this. Both of them believe in fairness, so they allege. So they can't ignore this. And I invite them now to engage with this union, to look at solutions, because quite frankly, the compensatory mechanisms that are in place do not hold the confidence of this trade union. And prior to any ruling in January 2026, the International Labour Organization has previously ruled that if a government did choose to restrict us, then they need to have in place compensatory mechanisms for resolving pay and for resolving disputes that hold the confidence of this trade union. And it doesn't. It goes nowhere near.
Well, as with all things court related, we wait for a date in the European court. It's quite a lengthy delay. So we're just waiting for that date from the court. We've lodged it over 12 months ago now. So it could be imminent, or again, it could take some time yet. But what this does mean for members, if they want to engage and get involved in this campaign, is put the pressure on your local MP, especially if your local MP has a prison in their constituency. Write to them and ask them a simple question, and that question is quite easy to answer. Do you support the POA campaign to restore the right to strike for prison officers in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland? Because this ruling does say that there is no justification for withholding the right to strike for us, because they've restored it in Scotland. So you can't even justify withholding it from us if they've got it in Scotland. So put the pressure on your local MP. Don't forget, there's a general election looming in a few short years' time. And this government, let's be honest, they haven't started well, have they? They've scored a lot of own goals. They keep going back on pledges. They keep reneging on promises in their manifesto. And as for their Employment Rights Act, which is now in legislation, does absolutely nothing to support prison officers. This is the government who stated that they would restore the rights for the workers, except, of course, if you're a working class prison officer in England, Wales, or Northern Ireland, because we've got no industrial rights whatsoever. And I would expect a political party born out of the trade union movement to put that right. Because let's be honest, how embarrassing would this be for this government when we win that case in the European Court, because they've backed up legislation, anti-trade union legislation, draconian and pernicious, which was brought in by a Tory government. How embarrassing would that be?
So we want government to look at this very, very carefully, realise that they're out of tune on this particular issue, and engage with this trade union, because the issue isn't going to go away. We will continue to campaign, and if that leads to embarrassment for government, then I'm afraid it leads to embarrassment, because we'll be raising our campaign over the coming months and with the full support of the TUC affiliates as well, because that motion was passed at Congress last year.
We're quite fortunate. We do have a lot of supporters in the House of Commons. Some of them have been supporters for years and done a very good job on our behalf, and they will ask awkward questions of the Prisons Minister or the Secretary of State for Justice, or whoever it is being made a scapegoat on the dispatch box, when they get those awkward questions from us by our supporters in the House of Commons, and asking specifically why, after this ruling, does this government refuse to engage with the POA and refuse to reinstate the right to strike, because it quite clearly breaches our human rights at work. The only problem is it's not binding, but it does hold weight, and we will use it as evidence in our court case. So it's a positive. It could be a game changer. Let's hope it is. But let's all get involved. Let's put the pressure on our local politicians, and we'll keep the pressure up in the House of Commons by getting our colleagues who support us to ask those awkward questions.
So we look for a sensibility moving forward in this, and our offer is there. Engage with us on a without prejudice basis, if necessary, with an independent person who holds the confidence of government and the trade union to see if we can find a way through this that satisfies both parties. We will be raising our campaign with our membership in the coming weeks on the run up to our annual conference. We will be making sure that we publicise this as much as possible with parliamentarians of all parties to see where this leads to see what pressure can be applied on the government. I think it's a win-win situation for them. If they engage with us, there's nothing lost. But for them to endorse anti-trade union legislation and try and defend it potentially in a court, to me, makes no sense whatsoever for a Labour government to do that.
It's been a long 30 years since 1994 when we got it removed, but like everything in life, especially as a trade unionist, you never get given anything. You have to fight for everything. And sometimes, as we've seen over the years, these campaigns take decades. But we will never ever give up until we get what we deserve, and that's our industrial rights in the workplace reinstated so we have bargaining power when it comes to pay, so we can protect our health and safety without the threat of court action from an employer and a government that keeps hitting us with a high court injunction. That needs to end, and this government needs to sit down with us, need to sort it out.
I mean, at the end of the day, we never ever thought this would be easy. No one ever hands anything to you on a plate. And, it's taken 32 years. We're still not there yet. I recognise that this isn't legally binding on any government, a recommendation and a report from the Council of Europe. But let me be absolutely clear, it would be a stain on this government if they ignored that report. It's quite damning. And I urge all parliamentarians to read it and apply pressure on this cabinet to make sure that justice has been done for POA members.